Pastor Greg Mayhorn here. I'm glad you're joining us today. We are having a great move of God at Freedom Word Church, and I encourage you, if you're in Central Virginia, anywhere in the area, please come and join us sometime on Sunday mornings at 10 and Wednesdays at 7. We have great meetings, and we would love to have you with us. I'm going to be talking to you today and for the next couple of weeks about three things in our lives that always must agree if we're going to have a release of the power of God in our lives. Three things. You can't just have two of them or one of them. You have to have all three. And those three things are your believing, your talking, and your actions. These three things have to be in agreement in order to have the power of God at work in your life. Your believing has to be accurate. It has to be correct. We don't have a right to just believe anything we want to believe. Our talking has to be in line with our believing, and then our actions have to be in line with what we're saying. So all these things have to align. Let's talk about them one at a time. The first one is believing. And it might come as a surprise to you if you've never thought about this before, but it's very important to understand that believing is a choice. It's something we choose to do. We might not realize we're doing it. We may not realize we're making the choice, but actually we are. And one of the major ways that we make a choice as to our believing is when we choose what we hear. Because the principle, of course, is Romans 10:17, that faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the Word of God. Now, in the book of Hebrews, chapter number 3, there's some powerful verses. Verse number 12 says, "Beware, brethren, lest there be in any of you an evil heart of unbelief in departing from the living God." Notice he uses the term an evil heart of unbelief. In verse 19, same chapter, Hebrews 3, it says, "So we see that they could not enter in," this is talking about Israel, couldn't go into the promised land, "because of unbelief." Now, it's really interesting to note that unbelief is not just an inconvenient problem. It's not a sickness. It's not a disease. It's not something that can't be helped. It's a choice. We choose every day what we believe and what we don't believe. And the principle of how faith comes, we referred to Romans 10:17, makes it possible for us then to choose what we believe when we choose what we hear. And that's why we need to constantly be hearing the Word of God. Every day of our lives, we need to be feeding on the truths of the Word of God, because what we hear determines what we believe. What we hear determines our faith. So we hear in two distinct areas of our lives. We hear voices from the outside. That's what our ears pick up. And then we also hear with an inside voice. In other words, we on the inside, we can hear ourselves. That's what I'm trying to say, as we speak. So our faith really comes as we hear others bring to us the Word, and then our faith also comes as we hear ourselves say the Word. So it's important to be very discriminating about what we hear, because it's going to determine what you believe, and what you believe is going to determine eventually what you have in your life.